Good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Hillary Clinton's book is out. She's taken a pretty good swipe at Bernie Sanders, also Joe Biden, critical of him. And this book is, quote, getting good reviews. I haven't heard anybody say anything good about it so far, and I haven't read anything good about it so far. And a book is only going to be judged by how many copies it sells, because that's all she's concerned about. That's my take on it. Okay. Now, Hillary is saying that she is convinced that the Russians and the Trump campaign colluded. Now, think about that. She has absolutely no evidence to back that up. But that's what's in her heart right now, and that is one of the reasons why she thinks she lost the election. She's listening to James Clapper and some of these other dudes who are no longer in the U.S. intel community that really can't pin down exactly what happened. There are 3 investigations going on right now, but Hillary, without a shred of evidence, is out there taking a shot at Bernie, blaming him for the crooked Hillary line that Trump came up with because of the speeches that she gave and got paid for them on Wall Street. She's convinced that the Russians colluded, but she has no evidence of any of this stuff. This is a sad chapter. And of course, the White House briefing today, Sarah Huckabee went on to say just that. This is a sad chapter in Hillary's political career that is going to end like this. So what does she have to offer? Now, I want to contrast where this is right now. Bernie Sanders is still involved in an organization that is trying to move the country forward. He's introducing legislation to get us universal health care. He is slowly getting on some senators, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. I believe that Elizabeth Warren is on board with it.
Kristen
Gillibrand from New York is now a little bit of cold feet, but she's in the tank too. I want to know where Amy Klobuchar is. I want to know where Al Franken is. I want to know where Sherrod Brown is. I mean, come on, liberals, step up. Universal health care is what the American people want. So Bernie's spearheading this, and Hillary Clinton is spearheading nothing for the progressive movement, but only sour grapes and excuses as to why the country is screwed up because she's not president. And quite frankly, it kind of pisses me off. I mean, get over it, okay? The book entitled What Happened? That's the title of the book? It's not, and it was written today in the Progressive Breakfast, which I thought was very interesting. What was the guy's name that wrote it?
Richard Escron.
Richard Escron. Yeah, I never heard of him, but at least there was one paragraph in there that was pretty damn smart. The question is what happened. The question is what needs to happen. I think he put it that way. Look, if Bernie doesn't run, somebody has to pick up his playbook and run. That's where the country is right now. Don't worry about the money. The money's going to be there. The millennials have proven that they can match the corporate money with the $27 a month donation and be a part of a revolution. Hillary was making fun of a revolution. It's still going on. And you know what? I love this story. I love the fact that there's 50,000 people that have signed a petition saying that Bernie Sanders should run for the People's Party. I mean, that just sounds like real good political stuff for the next generation. So a group of progressives got together in Washington. Cornel West was involved. They called it the Convergence Conference. Apparently, this guy, Nick Brana, is the founder of the Draft Bernie for a People's Party. And the thing I like about this is that if it ain't Bernie, it's going to be somebody else. And so we got Nick with us today here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Nick, I don't know if you and I have ever met. I was a Sanders supporter. Bernie did a lot of interviews with us, ended up on RT. He didn't seem to have a problem with it. But, of course, the Clintonistas have feared everybody up about RT. I'm still the same guy. But, Nick, welcome aboard. You're the founder of Draft Bernie for a People's Party. I like it. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Ed, it's great to be here.
What's the mission here? Or have I mischaracterized this?
No, you got it exactly right. So the mission is we have found ourselves in this place, in this country, in a place where we have two corporate parties that take money from the same corporations, many times the same billionaires, certainly the same donor class, and yet somehow we're amazed at how neither one of them manages to represent us. And so the mission of Draft Bernie for a People's Party is to say, you know what, the progressive movement has been trying to reform the Democratic Party for decades, and it has only gone further to the right in lockstep with the Republicans. And so it's time for a new approach. It's time to create a party modeled after Bernie's campaign and the explosive success which that had, which unabashedly stands in an undiluted way for Medicare for all, free public college, reducing inequality, breaking up the banks, all of these things that Bernie campaigned on. That's what we got together to talk about this weekend.
All right. How would you judge this first conference, this Convergence Conference? Was it a success? Will there be more? Where's it going? I mean, you got 50,000 supporters signing a petition. That's nothing to sniff at. I mean, this is pretty good stuff.
That's right. We started out, with nothing really, just as an organization saying that, Bernie Sanders should be the one to lead us, to really follow the lead of the American people, because Americans now are leaving the Democratic Party, they're leaving the Republican Party, and they're becoming independent in record numbers.
Yeah.
It's been tens of millions of Americans who've left both establishment parties in the past decade. And so we're saying it's time for the progressive movement to follow the lead of the American people and seek that next frontier, which is independent politics, a new party, a party that can actually replace the Democratic Party, which is now holding a position that should be held by a progressive populist party, can follow the model that was created actually by the Republican Party, the Lincoln's abolitionist Republican Party, when it replaced the Whigs back in the 1850s.
We're visiting with Nick Brana. He's the founder of Draft Bernie for a People's Party. His experience is that he's a former political outreach coordinator for the Sanders campaign in 2016. That had to be a real eye-opening experience, but also a real motivating time in your life that you actually saw change, you saw people come together. It had to give you more hope than Barack Obama ever talked about. I mean, that's my sense. What are your thoughts?
That's right. You mentioned millennials before in your intro. And, one of the most inspiring things about 2016 was that 91% of millennials, nearly unanimous, were polled during the summer of 2016, and they said that they wanted to vote for a major independent candidate. Not Hillary, not Trump, neither of the major two parties. And so I think, wow, 91%, that's the future of this country. There is this massive disconnect now from where people are in terms of their beliefs, in terms of what they want to see, in terms of what they need to survive, the policies that Bernie campaigned on, and where the major two parties sit. And it's a gulf that has been really increasing and growing over the past decade through the Obama administration as people realize that he was more rhetoric than action, and now it has become a massive electoral chasm, a party-sized chasm on the populist progressive left.
Here's what I want to really accentuate with our viewers and listeners is that I've thought for a long time this is where the country is. This is a true pro-labor. This is a true equality. This is true criminal justice. Justice system needs to be revamped. Get public money into and get special interest money out of elections. Let's go to public funding. All of these things to clean it up, because the people's voices are being drowned out, and that's really a lot of what Bernie ran on. He was mocked by the Clinton people as what revolution? Which every time I heard that, I thought, well, they're just admitting that they don't know where the American people are. They don't know what the future is. And I've said all along, Nick, these people these Americans who are between 20 and 40, if they think that their health care rates are going up now, they better start asking themselves the question, where do you think it's going to be when you're 55? Where do you think the rates are going to be when you're 60? and I keep hearing people saying, well, this can't be sustained. You're damn right it can't be sustained, because it needs to be supported with American tax dollars and a system that will provide for all, which will eventually bring down the price. I'm sold on universal health care, Medicare for all. I have been for years. And I just believe that this is a big enough problem and a big enough issue with every American family and every American citizen that this is a platform for a campaign. That this could be the lead dog in all of it. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. And I think that the battle over that idea has been won. By a 2-to-1 margin, Americans want Medicare for all, single payer. And now the battle really turns to how do we achieve it? And so there are many progressives who are, of course, trying to go for it inside the Democratic Party. But we also have a lot of experience and a lot of history to inform that approach.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, Barack Obama supported it. And when candidate Barack Obama, President Barack Obama withdrew from that support. Hillary Clinton used to support it, didn't support it in her tenure in office either, or when she campaigned against Bernie. Looking at California, actually, just now is one of the most instructive examples. So if we want to see what do Democrats do when they actually take control, because now Republicans are in control of all three branches, really, of government on a federal level. But what happens when Democrats take control? Because that seems to be the goal now of a lot of the progressive movement. And so what we see actually in California is that where there is a supermajority of Democrats in the legislature, they have the governorship, both houses of the legislature over there, and yet it is Democrats who are blocking the passage of single payer.
The Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the Assembly's got real cold feet, and if you check who's bankrolling his campaign, you're going to find big pharma, you're going to find big insurance. And that to me is a national story. So you're weeding out who the true progressives are and the next generation of where the country's got to go, and I commend you for it. Now, if Bernie doesn't want to do this, it sounds to me like you're on the hunt for a candidate, you're on the hunt for a leader. What's plan B? And Bernie didn't show up at your Convergence conference after being invited, which, you know, he's probably playing some political cards right now, and maybe he thinks it's a timing issue. But it's also a timing issue if you want to get this thing done. So what's plan B if it's not Bernie?
Part of our thinking around all of this and our case to Bernie Sanders is that, you know, when you look back into our own history, it turns out that there is a model for passing progressive legislation, especially landmark progressive legislation, like the Medicare for All push going on right now. What you actually find is that when it comes to passing child labor laws, the 40-hour work week, women's suffrage, abolition, the direct election of senators, on, landmark progressive legislation, there has always been a major third party pressuring the establishment parties and threatening them, creating external pressure, saying that if you do not do this, then we will replace you. Now, if you look upon our movement right now and the dynamics that exist in the progressive movement, we lack that leverage that a major third party gives the progressive movement. And that's why they feel so free to dismiss progressives in the way that they have for the past year and many years before that. And so that's why we're saying that this is essential. So whether you want to reform the Democratic Party as a progressive or whether you want to start a new party, the best way to do either and to achieve Medicare for all is to create a major third party which finally creates an existential threat to the Democratic Party. We will replace you if you don't do this.
Of course. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it extends even further, this analogy. So when you look at our northern neighbor, which has had single payer for about 50 years now in Canada, as most of the Western world does, nearly all of it. And what you see there is, once again, how was it achieved? It turns out that in one province in the 1940s in Saskatchewan in Canada, a third party took power, and they implemented single payer. And at that point, really, there was such a demand across the country for single-payer nationally that the major parties in Canada were forced to adopt it. And so there is a model. It takes external pressure from a major third party, and that's what we're trying to convey to Bernie Sanders now and to the movement, that this gives you leverage that is essential to achieving these kinds of policies.
Final question for you, Nick, and you're going to join us tonight on RT on the news at 8 o'clock Eastern. I appreciate that. How's the mainstream media going to treat this? What are your expectations?
Well, I've gotten a very good taste of that this past weekend in a number of interviews, USA Today and LA Times, Washington Post. And the number one question is always, aren't you just splitting the left vote? Aren't you just dividing the vote? You know? And my response to that is that the left is already split, the left vote. You go down issue polls for those issues that Bernie Sanders ran on. 2-1 of Americans in favor of Medicare for all. 2-1 Americans in favor of free public college. 9-1 Americans in favor of getting money out of politics. And yet somehow Hillary Clinton could only pull in about 28% of eligible voters.
Yeah.
That's a split in the progressive vote. Yeah. Progressives are no longer voting for Democrats, who are the embodiment of the system that they're trying to escape. And so the solution for that, as long as Democrats are not going to come to the table, and they aren't, is then to start a new party that either forces them to come to the table on these issues, as has been done before in our own history, or which replaces them if they refuse to.
Nick Brana, appreciate it. We'll see you tonight on the Tube, and I want to ask everybody that is watching this, listening to this, if you're a good progressive, and I've never done this before, I'm asking you to share this podcast with your friends. This is how it has to work. And I get a sense that Nick Brana and his organization draft Bernie for a People's Party. I just don't think this is going to get a lot of mainstream media support. This is going to be treated like the TPP by the corporate media. Yet this is where the people are, I guarantee you. And I've heard it in town halls for the last 8 years, and I don't think there's any doubt that you're really onto something, and this could be a political tsunami. I believe that. Nick, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Ed. I can't wait to talk tonight.
You bet. So those of you who think that you're in the mix politically and you still believe that there can be political change, why don't you take this audio, and I'm asking you to share it with as many friends as you can and see if we can get maybe 500,000 signatures on this petition. I think it's got life. Ed Schultz, News and Commentary, back tomorrow.